What is going on, all of you Hedgehog fanatics out there in the world? I'm Mega Amster. Thank you for watching this movie review, whether you are a new or returning viewer. I appreciate you stopping by. And I am, of course, now reviewing the Sonic the Hedgehog movie 3, which came out just a few days ago as of this recording, and I have now seen it earlier today as of this recording with a bunch of friends, so shout out to them for joining me for this movie. I will be playing Sonic Crush Shadow Generations gameplay footage in the background, just a heads up, just to avoid any potential copyright with the trailer footage, and also, just because if you haven't seen the trailers, just to have minimal spoilers going into it. I do want to mention, though, so what I'm going to do for this movie review is I'm going to have almost no spoilers, some light spoilers that I will kind of mention some stuff from the trailers, mainly like characters are going to be the big one and stuff like that that comes up. So tiny minor spoilers there, and then really get into the spoiler section and of course any post credits or mid credits scenes for the movie, which have some big implications. So I'm going to start here with just like light or no spoilers here and just kind of give my thoughts on the movie overall. Movie 3, I'm still processing my thoughts on it, but definitively it is the most Sonic movie out of the trilogy that we have so far. And yeah, I would even argue 2 is a big step up from 1 in that regard, but even 3 I think is an even bigger step. Like if you are a fan of Sonic Adventure 2, I think you're really going to be entertained by this movie. Now, the thing is with this movie is they take a lot of creative liberties with some of the origins of the story. Mainly, of course, if you're watching this, I assume like I said, minor spoilers for characters and stuff. I won't go into details specifically, but of course, being the origin story for Shadow in the movie universe, it's not one for one what it was in the games. They take some creative liberties that honestly make sense in the Sonic universe. And I think like they all work. None of them feel out of place, which is kind of nice. They did the same thing for Sonic Movie 2, and I mean, especially Sonic Movie 1, but it's not as egregious as that one for sure. This feels more grounded in the movie universe while also respecting the original source material being Sonic Adventure 2. Now, that being said, I do want to talk about characters, as I'm sure, especially the new characters that we know about going to this movie. I'm assuming if you're watching this review, you probably want to hear about how they do, and especially Shadow. Shadow is the highlight, easily. The highlight. I think Keanu Reeves does a fantastic job. I actually like his Shadow more than Idris Elba's Knuckles, personally. It is still his own version. It's a little more in line with like the current Shadow in the games being crap. Why is voice actor not coming to my mind? Anyways, the current Shadow voice actor. It's probably closely aligned with that, but it's still Keanu's own spin on it, and I think it genuinely works really well. Shadow is the focus of this movie, no doubt. He gets a lot of time. We get a lot of his backstory with Maria. The flashbacks with Maria were honestly fantastic, and almost, I don't know, I didn't quite choke up, but like it started to get me there. Honestly, some beautiful scenes highlighting his relationship with Maria, which makes his motivation for the events of the movie a lot more understandable in a way. Very revenge driven. Of course, if you play Sonic Adventure 2, you understand that, but we get way more footage time with them here, even than Sonic Adventure 2, which is honestly really good to see. I'm really glad they decided to prioritize that. I think he's a really good character. I will say as a bit of a negative, and like I could see this, but also I don't know how else they would have done it. Some of my friends mention it, where there's so much focus on Shadow and of course Sonic interacting with him that Tails and Knuckles kind of get sidelined a bit. And it's tough because, like, I don't know how you balance that, because, like, Shadow is the main character going through growth here. Sonic does as well. It is a little similar to the stuff he goes through in movie 2, so it feels a little bit repetitious in that regard, but it's a little more intense this time around, Shadow plays a very similar role to what Knuckles had in Sonic Movie 2, where he is kind of Sonic's antagonist, but, they eventually kind of grow together and learn from each other, So like just a more intense version, of course, with Shadow with his whole revenge plot with Maria. And they kept that a highlight, which was honestly great. So I think Shadow's character overall is really, really good. Like anytime he's on the screen, he does a really good job. He has some genuinely like emotional moments. And like just seeing him in action is super cool. He has a lot of his chaos powers that you'll see in some of the games. Not all of them, but like some of them too, which is really, really cool to see. And there are some very cool moments with him. Overall, Shadow's the highlight for sure, but I do want to point out that Gerald is also very much a highlight in this movie. He is not a side character by any means, and that is one of the creative liberties, right, that this movie takes. With Sonic Adventure 2, right, Gerald was dead. Gerald was literally shot by a firing squad by the time the events of Sonic Adventure 2 happened, but of course he still had a big impact on the events of that game. Whereas here, he is completely alive, and seeing him interact with movie Robotnik is honestly interesting. Now, of course, both characters are portrayed by Jim Carrey, but Gerald feels different. You know, Gerald doesn't feel like a carbon copy of Robotnik. They actually, I keep saying Robotnik because they call him that in that movie, but like Eggman, right? Where they feel a little bit different. Like, they're both kind of goofy. Gerald feels a little less goofy, especially with like his motivations and stuff. And I know some people are going to argue that his character is different than the games. However, and I'll get into this more in the spoiler section, his motivations, like, Shadow the Hedgehog painted him as like this martyr character, which I never liked, because he's not. He's a madman driven by grief. And this, I won't say the specific details until the spoiler part, but this movie narrows down on that personality of him, which makes sense, especially in the context of this movie. It makes a lot of sense. I think Jim Carrey did a really good job, and I felt like Gerald felt different than Eggman. Like, I was worried they were gonna feel the exact same, and like, of course, you can tell they're related. Like, that's kind of the neat part, is seeing them both be alive at the same time and seeing how they differ and how similar they are. And I think they did a really good job with the writing and making them feel different but related, of course. So that was honestly really cool of that. So like, the new characters overall really good. What's her, Kristen Ritter, something like that? The actress who plays Jessica Jones, if you know what I'm talking about. She's also in this movie. She had a bigger role than I anticipated. I won't say necessarily what kind of character she was, but I thought she did pretty well. She pretty much felt like Jessica Jones. So if you liked her as Jessica Jones, you might like her here. Less intense and vulgar than Jessica Jones, but still, like, I think she did a pretty decent job. For the role that she had. It was cool to see what they pulled, like Gunn having a bigger focus in this movie compared to the other ones. They were in there in 2, especially with the wedding scene. It was cool to see what they pulled. I do want to say, so speaking of wedding scenes, this movie, in one way that it feels a lot more just like a Sonic movie compared to the others, definitely the fewest amount of like human scenes. Like, Tom and Maddie honestly weren't in this a ton. Like I said, they weren't a lot in Sonic 2. They might have even been in this movie less than Sonic 2. And like some of the other human characters you barely see, like, it actually made sense for the plot, which I think they did a really good job about. It did not overstay its welcome. I can't think of any scenes that were egregious like the wedding scene in Sonic Adventure, not Sonic Adventure 2, in Sonic 2. That's kind of a spoiler, so I don't want to say that. But I don't feel like there were any egregious scenes like in the first 2 movies. You know, I feel like they balanced that a lot better, and it made it really feel more like a Sonic film. They were still there, don't get me wrong, but they were definitely more minor characters. They were just kind of there for support and to help drive the plot along. I mean, Tom and Maddie like has their scenes in the movie, but like not too much. You know what I mean? This really is focused on Sonic and Shadow and Gerald and Eggman and all of them, which is cool to see. And, you know, we didn't even know going into this if Eggman was going to be in the movie, right? Because Jim Carrey, even acting anymore, was, you know, being questioned. But no, he is back here, as we saw. He's also good. It's interesting to see where he ends up after Sonic Movie 2 with, you know, how they kind of ended that. And then also to see Agent Stone. Agent Stone, honestly, was really good in this movie. I actually, like, felt like he had more of a character that wasn't just like obsessing over Eggman, which was kind of cool to see. He still was a little bit, but it wasn't as bad as the first 2 movies, so that was kind of cool to see. Yeah, overall the characters I thought were really good. I mean, yeah, I get the argument that like Tails and Knuckles were sidelined a little bit in favor of Sonic and especially Shadow. But at the same time, like, I'm trying to think how they would have done that right. I don't know, because they could have had other character arcs, but we're already starting to get to the point where there are so many characters to keep track of. Like, how do you balance the screen time? Like, I honestly don't know. But yeah, that is totally a valid criticism. The other thing that I could see as a valid criticism is, honestly, a lot of the humor. There were a couple moments that I genuinely chuckled, which were like kind of funny for a film targeted towards kids. They were definitely adult jokes. But a lot of the kids' jokes felt especially egregious in this movie. I don't want to say what joke specifically, but like a couple of them were just stupid, crude humor that just like, I don't know. Maybe it's just like my immediate thoughts watching the movie, but like it was a little forced at some points. But you know what? It is what it is. like overall, I'm trying to think of what else I could talk about. Like it respects the source material. Like the new characters were pretty good. The old characters are still quite good, although like I said, Tails and Knuckles definitely less of an emphasis, you know, because you're gonna focus on Shadow, you're gonna focus on Gerald and Shadow's connection with Maria, which those were all fantastic. The best scenes, I honestly would say, the ending was great. The opening was pretty strong. In between, got a little slow at moments while they were trying to do some stuff. That got a little slow, but opening was strong. Ending was fantastic. The ending was great. And yeah, just the middle was a little. Like, I could see some people say it was a little slow. Like, I'm still in my mind. I think this is objectively the best Sonic movie. Like, out of the three, it is the most Sonic-like, and it might be. I think it might be the most consistently quality film of the three. But like, I might prefer the highs of Sonic Movie 2 over this. I'm really gonna have to rewatch it to fully compare, because I've seen Sonic Movie 2 like 4 times at this point, so I think it's not fair to compare it to that one as much. But yeah, it respects the source material. The characters were great, especially the new ones who got most of the focus. Consistent quality there, and like the music was good. The set pieces were fun. There were some fun like little nods and Easter eggs they had in there for sure if you're paying attention. And it was just great to see. The main thing was like, are they going to do Shadow justice? And I would say yes, 100%. They did Shadow justice in this film. Even with the creative liberties they took, it made sense for the movie universe. And like, it really, like, you can understand his motivations and you can understand his redemption and all of that. I think they did a really good job. This really was the year of Shadow leading into this film. So that mission accomplished there. Gerald as well was pretty good. Not like amazing, but he was still pretty good. So yeah, overall, I mean, like, listen, great movie. It's getting great reviews. I think it is going to end up being the most highly reviewed Sonic movie, which I think it deserves it. You know, I think it respects the source material very, very much, and I think Sonic Adventure 2 fans are going to be happy with what they did here. So that is my no to light spoiler section. I'm about to get into spoilers here with the film, so definitely click away. If you have not seen the movie and you plan on seeing it, do not click away. I'm going to be spoiling major plot points, major character interactions, and of course the middle and post-credit sequences, so I'll give you a few seconds to switch off if you want to. It's crazy up in here. All right, spoiler time. No Hunted Pete, that's okay. Live and Learn, fantastic. Peak. They actually got Johnny Gielli's lyrics in there. That was fantastic. I did not know they were going to do that. I knew there was an orchestral version, but not with the lyrics. Yeah, the creative liberties they took. Let's start there. Of course, like Gerald being alive and whatever, that's great. Mainly with Shadow's origin story, right? The fact that so first of all, it's not the arc. There's no arc. It's just the Eclipse Cannon. It's kind of split up between, there's this like base on Earth where Gerald and Gunn were raising Shadow. That's where Maria was. And instead of like the arc being raided, it was like this base being raided by Gunn. Very similar, you know, Maria dying. That was tragic. And then also the fact that the arc doesn't exist in this universe. It's just like, Gerald calls it the Eclipse Cannon, but it pretty much is like a miniature arc. I thought that was fine. You know, I wasn't upset by that. I think it worked out for the movie universe. I mean, I don't really necessarily see why they chose to do that over the arc, but then again, I don't think it was fine. Maybe it was because they would have had to explain how the arc was just floating up there for so long, but I don't know. Then again, the Eclipse Cannon came from underwater, so who knows. So that was, I thought that was fine. Yeah, Gerald being alive with Eggman was honestly interesting. I thought it was kind of a cool take to have and see them interact and kind of be different from each other. Of course, Gerald being a lot more motivated to, you know, a lot more intense and a lot more like willing to do whatever. You could argue that he went a little too far, but he was grief-stricken, right? And he still didn't get over that grief. You know, whereas you compare it to how he was in Shadow the Hedgehog, where he's like, oh, I actually developed the Eclipse Cannon to stop the Black Aliens. And it's like, all right, did you though, bro? Like, can we not forget that he tried to literally destroy everybody on Earth in Sonic Adventure 2? So I honestly appreciate the angle they took here, where he was just pure evil, stricken by grief, and just absolutely, like, that was the breaking, that was the straw breaking. There was no going back from there. I will say his death was a little anticlimactic. Like, I genuinely laughed. Like, I was just like, what the fuck? And some of my friends were like, what? The man just gets considered. Like, oh my God. That was just wild. That was crazy. It was a little anticlimactic. Then again, it made sense. It made sense he wasn't going to survive until the next movie. So I kind of saw that coming. Eggman. We'll get into Eggman in a second. I want to say that for like, I'll review the end again in a little bit. Yeah, the Tom and Maddie scenes I thought were fine. You know, them disguising themselves as Maddie's sister and her husband. Like, I thought that worked out well. That was their kind of little moment, and like it made sense for the plot to get them into the gun HQ. The gun commander dying so early was interesting, so I imagine Kristen Ritter's character is going to replace him essentially for the future movies. He probably just didn't want to be in Sonic Movie 4. Like, I think he was done at this point, which is fair. I assume he's like dead. That's the vibe I got. The Chao Garden, fantastic. Great little reference to that. And they were in Tokyo. That was kind of fun. Yeah, Keanu Shadow, great. Him wielding the gun on the motorcycle, perfect. The gun actually had more of a role than I expected. He actually used it a little bit. It was like a laser gun, but still. That was cool to see. And like, yeah, like the balance of human character scenes were not, none of them were groaning to me. There were no like groan scenes. Even that dance sequence with Eggman and Gerald in the lasers, like that was just funny. I don't know. We had dance sequences like that before in like Sonic Movie 1, and I actually really thought that was very funny. I liked it. It's just Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey, you know? It wasn't nearly as bad as like the Russian dance scene in Sonic Movie 2, or even like the bar scene in Sonic Movie 1, even though that one I thought was kind of fun. You know, like I honestly thought it was like, there weren't any scenes here where I was like cringed out. You know what I mean? Except for they did make the fart jokes, man. There were a couple like fat fart jokes that were just like clearly targeted for the kids, and it was like, all right. I chuckled at like one or two of them, but like, I don't know, man. Gerald like farting and then dying was a little weird. I don't know. That scene was just crazy. I don't know. That was a little strange. Yeah, Shadow's great. Tails and Knuckles, I wish they had more of a role for sure. You know, like Tails was like, we're still a team, right? And Knuckles was like, Sonic, you gotta be better or whatever, and Sonic's like, no, I'm gonna use the Master Emerald. And like, yeah, it was weird how the Chaos Emeralds didn't play a big factor until the very end. Like the fact that the key cards activated the Eclipse Cannon instead of the emeralds, like I want the emeralds to have more of a purpose in the movie universe like they do the games, right? The fact that the emeralds used to be powered for the Eclipse Cannon, I get it would have been tough to gather all of them. They could have just taken the Master Emerald and then done that. Wade guarding the Master Emerald was really stupid, and I don't know why that was. The Knuckles show never said anything about that, and neither did movie 2. So, at least I don't think they did. That was a little weird. I mean, I guess in the context of the show, it makes sense, kind of, because he's more acquainted with Wade, but that was still weird. I don't know. And it just felt kind of disrespectful. Like, there's no way Knuckles would give Wade the Master Emerald and then plays fucking, like, street hockey with it. You know what I mean? Like, that was a little weird. Kristen Ritter's character was interesting. I thought she was pretty decent. I mean, I feel like she just played, like, the stoic gun commander kind of character, but I thought she was fine. I'm trying to think of what else. Maria was great. That actress did a fantastic job. I'm still shocked at how well like Jim Carrey played both roles. Like they felt like different characters still, which was really good. Like, I mean, he's a great actor. Like, kudos to him for doing that. I'm trying to think of anything else. I'm missing any other important details. Little fun Easter eggs like the Biolizard in that show that Maria and Shadow were watching was really funny. I wasn't sure if they were going to put the Biolizard in the actual movie. It makes sense that they wouldn't. That would be going a little too out there. Like, the changes they made, I honestly think were for the better, and it felt like they were more grounded in the movie universe. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that they did that. So that was really cool to see. I'm trying to think of anything else, like any other negatives. Like, I overall have very positive things to say about this movie. I wasn't, like, personally wasn't blown away. And I think maybe just because I had like tempered expectations going in, like it was very well done. I wasn't like super hyped until like the credit scenes. We'll get into that in just a second. But I thought it was really well done. It was a really good adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2's main story with Shadow, and you feel for him. You know, there were a couple moments, like I said, like that made me almost get choked up. Like especially with seeing the flashbacks with Maria, I thought were great. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, like solid film in that regard. It made sense that Tom almost dying was like Sonic's breaking moment, and that he did what he did. Like, to be honest, like that made sense to me in my head, because Sonic's not a level-headed person. He's very hot-headed. We know that as the character, so that felt right. And then getting to have him with the moon blowing up in half almost was a great little nod for that. I hope we see half blown up moon in Sonic Movie 4. Hope that consistency stays there. And then Sonic and Shadow having that scene again with Knuckles. It did feel much like a repeat, which I figured would happen, like with Knuckles' role in Movie 2, where Shadow's a little more intense, obviously revenge driven, but it was still the same like pep talk with Sonic and Shadow, and really getting to understand his character a little more, which I thought they did a good job with, you know? Now Knuckles and Tails not as much of a focus in this movie as a result, which I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how you fix that, you know? Especially like the MCU has this issue where you have so many characters. Like, how do you so many characters and they all keep coming back into the movies? You know what I mean? It makes it tough. So I don't know how else they would have done that. But I thought it was good for that regard. Overall, like very positive thoughts on this film. The ending, like I said, made sense for what it was. Shadow kind of sacrificing himself, but then also it was like Sonic who was falling down to the planet. Like that was a little interesting twist. Having all three of them jump out of the helicopter with literally the dialogue pulled out of Sonic Adventure 2's opening was really fun. That was a little cringy, mainly because I knew it was from the game, but it was a nice little reference there. Yeah, Gerald dying, like I said, was kind of anticlimactic. That was just weird. I don't know. That felt a little strange. But then again, they also have to take care of Eggman, who I assume is dead. Right? We got to talk about that, right? Because obviously Sonic 2, they could have played it like Eggman died there. But they didn't. They had Eggman hiding underwater, somehow recovered, hiding underwater there. I mean, we saw in the post-credit scene of Sonic Movie 2, Agent Stone disguise himself as a gun agent trying to find Robotnik. So that was interesting to see just how they had him come back. It was kind of a little anticlimactic too to see Eggman come back, but I mean, like, they didn't need to do anything crazy for that. They just kind of had him be there and do his thing. And seeing him work with Sonic for a little bit was cool. And then, of course, turning on, like, we could have seen that coming a mile away. But yeah, I assume now, I mean, they could find a way to bring him back, right? They could have made it to that Shadow somehow got back to the Eclipse Cannon and Chaos controlled Eggman out of there. I don't know if he would have done that. Who is to say? But yeah, I mean, I guess speaking of that, I guess that kind of relates to the post-credit scene, which of course was Shadow actually survived. Like, I don't think, you know, that's a surprise to anybody. You know what I mean? I mean, well, it was a surprise. There were a few kids in the theater. It was a surprise to the kids in front of us, literally screaming at the top of his lungs, "Yes, he's alive!" Which was crazy. I mean, the kid was like 10, so he seemed happy about that. That was not a surprise to me. Like, I figured that was going to happen. The mid-credit scene is the one I really want to talk about because I did predict it and I did call it, and that was that Metal Sonic is coming into the movie universe, baby. This is what I'm hyped for. See, it sucks that the thing I'm most hyped about with Sonic Movie 3 is the teasing of Sonic Movie 4. I know that sounds bad. I wasn't like blown away by Sonic Movie 3. I thought it was great, but I also thought some of the other movies were great, right? Sonic 2, I was more blown away because I thought it was a much bigger jump from 1. I don't personally think 3, the jump between 2 and 3 is as big as 1 to 2, personally. But they did get rid of a lot of the egregious, like, human scenes in Sonic Movie 3, which I really appreciated. So overall, I think it is a better film. I might prefer the highs of 2, but we'll see. But yeah, anyways. Metal Sonic being there, fantastic. You know, I was really hoping he was going to show up at some point, and he looked amazing. He looked fucking great. I mean, almost pulled right out of the modern Sonic games, made sense. But not only that, but then there's the whole army of Silver Sonics with him. Like, that's crazy. I mean, they looked pretty much just like Metal Sonic, but silver instead of blue, so probably prototypes. And I was discussing with my friends, like, what the theories are behind, you know, if Eggman is dead, where did the Metal Sonics come from? And my fan theory leading into this was that because we know Eggman has at least one quill, he gets another one in this movie that Sonic gives him to agree with him helping him or whatever. But I think he still has another one from Sonic Movie 1 that he had at the end of that movie. I don't think he got rid of that quill in 2. So, yeah, he has at least one Sonic quill. My theory is that he used that to power Metal Sonic and the other robots, and he was developing that in secret before he died. My theory is going to be that in Sonic Movie 4, Agent Stone's still in the picture. My theory is that Eggman is going to leave like one last parting wish to Stone to unleash the Metal Sonic robots. And I think it's going to be Stone who has the army of robot Metal Sonics. And that's how, like, we see Stone actually be kind of capable in this film and have abilities of his own, like when he goes to the Chow Garden and disarms those Eggman robots being controlled by Gerald, right? Like, that was honestly cool to see that he has a little more of an action role, you know? So I think he's formidable, especially with Eggman's leftover technology. I think he could do well. So honestly, that's kind of my theory there. We'll see if that comes true. What I wasn't expecting, and honestly I should have seen it coming, was the confirmation that Amy's coming to the Sonic universe, which is also awesome. And it honestly makes sense she was not in this movie. I think if they had Amy or even Rouge in Sonic Movie 3, I think it would have been too much, you know? I really appreciate the fact that they decided to solely focus on Shadow and also Gerald. Like, I think that was the right call. I think it would have been, I mean, there was already a lot going on. I think it would have been way too much to have another character thrown in there. Whereas now, it makes so much sense that we're getting Metal Sonic and Amy. Like, their origins in the games are tied together. So, and maybe they'll even make more of a connection in movie 4. You know what I mean? But like, it just makes sense to see Amy. I wasn't expecting it, so that was the most hype moment for me, was of course Metal Sonic, but then seeing Amy there too, like, that just made a lot of sense for me. But I'll be curious, you know, how they tie her in, like where she comes from, like how she relates to the characters there. Like, I don't know, how does she get there? Like, I genuinely don't know. So we'll see about that. So, and her design looks pretty good. It was actually more different than I was expecting. Like, her head shape was different. Metal Sonic was pulled right out of the fucking game, so I'm so happy for it. I hope they keep that design for Sonic Movie 4. I hope it's not just an asset placeholder. I hope that's what they go with, because that looked awesome. I'm so hyped for Metal Sonic, bro. Like, I'm more hyped for Metal Sonic than Shadow, and I know that's weird, but like, listen, I've always liked Metal Sonic more as a rival than Shadow, but Shadow's a better character, of course. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much my thoughts there. Overall, like, before this video gets way too long, really good. Very good movie. If you're a fan of Sonic Adventure 2 and you're not super tied to the idea of everything being exactly the story, like, the story and character motivations are the same. Except you could argue maybe Gerald's a little more intense here, but I think that's for the better. But like, the little in-between minor details of how certain things happen, like there not being the Space Colony arc, you know, there not being like that, yeah, the origins being split between the two, Gerald being alive at the same time as Eggman. Like, if you're not super like strict on how things should happen, like, I think you'll be fine. The main story overall is the same as Sonic Adventure 2, and I think it's a very good adaptation of that story, especially Shadow's character, the background, backstory scenes with Maria. I think they did a really good job of capturing their connection and making Shadow's actions seem believable. Maybe not justifiable, but believable for sure. And overall, this is the most Sonic film we've gotten. This makes me extremely excited for Sonic Movie 4, especially. I'm very excited for that one now. And I'm excited to, you know, see what the future of the movies hold. I mean, I'm definitely getting this one on Blu-ray or 4K or whatever option, Steelbook if I can. And definitely excited for when Sonic Movie 4 and supposedly maybe a Shadow show come out. So that is going to do it for this Sonic Movie 3 review. Thank you so much for watching. If you did, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you enjoy this movie? Did you not enjoy this movie? Let's keep the comments spoiler free, please, except for maybe stuff we saw in the trailer. I think that's totally on the table, but no other spoilers, or otherwise I'm deleting your comment. So just a heads up there, but definitely some light spoiler discussion, some spoiler free discussion if possible in the comments would be great. So with that, thank you again so much for watching. I will catch you all on the next video or live stream, and until then, keep on going fast.